Welcome back to the Driven Career Podcast. I'm your host, Rachel Diaz, and this is a space where we talk about professional life and personal development to inspire you to overcome the challenges and grow in your career. And today's episode is for anyone that is thinking about career changing, because our guest knows exactly what that means. She's been transitioning careers from engineering, finances, supply chain, and leadership across 3 different countries. She started as a chemical engineer in Brazil and has worked at major companies like Votorantim, Kraft Foods, Walmart, and nowadays nothing less than Google. Please help me to welcome Alice Feix. Alice, how are you?
I'm doing great. It's great to reconnect with you, and I want to share all the knowledge that I gathered this time. So very, very happy to be here. Thank you for the invitation.
I'm so glad you were here. So I just provided like a quick overview of your background, but I would love to hear from you from your own words. Can you share a little bit of who you are and what are you doing today, Alice?
Absolutely, yes. I am working at Google. It's a very interesting part of Google, which is Google hardware. So we're focusing a lot on AI and all those things. And I work as a category business management, which is a function that has a lot of like strategy, sales strategy, and also in my case has a little bit of finance, right? So that's what I'm doing right now. I have been doing this job for almost 2 years, but maybe let me tell you how I got here. So as you said,
Yes.
Right. So I studied something very different from what I ended up doing and ended up changing so much my career because I saw that in some roles I wasn't exactly where I wanted. So I needed to pivot. So I studied chemical engineering in Brazil. And my first job was in Votorantim Cimentos. I was a field engineer, which was something that right away I saw that it wasn't what I wanted because I needed to be in the production, in the field. There wasn't a lot of interpersonal interaction. And then that was my first pivot. So from field engineer to demand planning, which was when I joined Kraft Foods. So it was Votorantim, then Kraft. I did demand planning, which was a great role because the demand planners, they have a lot of interaction with a lot of areas of the business. So finance, production, strategy, marketing. So it was an amazing opportunity to figure out what I wanted. Then it was Kraft for 2 years. I think Boticário, I also did demand planning because I was really enjoying that work. I was responsible for perfumes and also special dates like Mother's Day and all. And then after I worked for some time in Kraft and also Boticário, I saw that, okay, I had learned a lot by doing the demand planning job, but I had studied something very different, which was chemical engineering. I thought, okay, let me find a way to study, to prepare myself a little bit more for what I'm doing professionally. And then it was a very special time, very fortunate that they were offering those scholarships to come to the US and do a master's. So I quit my job, came to the US, did a master's in engineering management. And that's when I joined Walmart, where I did supply chain, as you mentioned. There was another pivot that I can go further as we talk. And then joined the area that I fell in love with, which was finance. So I did operations finance for Walmart for a couple of years. And then I received an invitation from Google to do finance with Google. And then from finance, because I did sales finance that was very, very close to the sales org, I also got the opportunity to join my business partners, which was the sales team, and do what I do right now, which is the category business management.
Wow, what a journey. And you have been across 3 different countries. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Absolutely. I would love to share about that because it's one of my favorite parts in my career, right? As you mentioned, I started in Brazil, then came to the US to do my master's. And then after my master's, I joined a very interesting program, in Walmart where they used to hire people from China, Mexico, and also Brazil to train these people on best practices for Walmart and then send to their countries, to send to these 3 markets. And when I was in this program, I saw that, when comparing Mexico and Brazil, which were the countries that I was more familiar with, although I didn't speak Spanish yet, I saw that there was no comparison with the Brazilian market. And I thought, okay, I want to learn something different. I want to learn Spanish. I want to have this experience working in another country. And because it was a much more relevant market for the company, I put I put it as a goal for me, saying, hey, okay, I'm going to be sent to Brazil, but let me start networking with the Mexico team, which I had gotten to know during my training, because I knew that that would be much better for my career, because the market was better, because I would learn a new language. So that's how it started.
Learning and growing. So you're ready. It sounds like you're at this point starting your plans. You started like, that's what I need. I need to learn so I can keep growing.
Exactly, you got it. And then, of course, in my contract and everything that I had agreed to, I needed to, after the training, go to Brazil. So I honored that. I went to Brazil. I did a training here in the US, went to Brazil. As soon as I got to Brazil, I started studying Spanish because I thought, okay, I will pivot to Mexico, which is a better country for Walmart. So I started preparing myself, doing a lot of networking with the Mexico team, which also helped me in my Brazilian role because we exchanged best practices. And then I think in around 6 months, with a lot of effort, networking, studying the language, I landed a job in Mexico. So that's when I made my first transition from the Brazilian Walmart to Mexico, to Walmart Mexico.
That's amazing. That really shows how you are so driven to like keep learning and growing. So that's great to know that you were so clear and upfront when you were honoring your employment and back to Brazil, but at the same time, keeping your eye in the future. So then you were communicating with your leadership and making it very clear that if that was an opportunity, and you mentioned you were networking, you're creating that opportunity, and that's why you landed your in that role in Mexico. I wanted to touch into that and understand, how do you identify when it's the right time to go after those new challenges or develop new skills?
I think one of these things happens. It's when I start kind of moving. Of course, networking is always so important. And then I want to touch a little bit about that. But let me first tell you, like, when do I start looking for something different? So one is when I see that the first option is when I see that I'm not enjoying, right? So it was what happened in Votorantim, that I was a field engineer and very clearly wasn't what I wanted, right? So definitely you're not enjoying. You see that's not where you want to be. It's time to change. Um, the second one that I think is also very important is when you're not learning anymore. So I start getting a little bit worried about, okay, like I already know very well how to do this role, which is good, but I don't want to stay in my comfort zone. So I think that that's another case where I start looking for something different. And it doesn't need to be a formal change of job. It could be like a new project that I can take on to learn a little bit more and to get to know more people. I think those two. And also when you're not proud of what you're doing. For example, I know that we need to work, right? So like sometimes maybe you are in a company that is very nice, but hey, but my dream would be to work in this company in this area. I think it's always important not to settle for what you have. And if you envision something better, like continue trying your best to get to where you want. And something that I think was very, very important for me, especially in the first case, right? Which is when you're not enjoying that much your job. In my experience, it has been very important to hold on, even if I wasn't liking, and not quit, because in the end, you have a lot of leverage. If you work for, a company and you are gathering knowledge every day, even if it's not what you like.
Yeah.
Right. So for me, it was very tempting to say, hey, I'm working like crazy. I don't like it. And I barely have time to study for the interviews and all. So should I quit? In my experience, no. You're going to have to work hard, prepare during the weekends or in your evenings, but the leverage is priceless. It has always been better for me to continue where I was and not quit until I find a better job.
Yeah, and a lot of cases, we have so much commitment. Sometimes even financial commitments. You can't just quit tomorrow. I'm totally with you. If you're not happy where you are at, that can be either for you're not satisfied with your role, maybe that's not aligned to your purpose or values. But ideally, you need to start working on your plan. I believe that's what's going to work. You start working on your plan, and I love hearing what you're saying. You might need to work on your plans on the weekend, maybe in the evenings, but you need to start somewhere. So you can't just wait for the time. And a lot of times I think that we are not going to have that proper time, because yes, when you're going through a transition, it takes time to prepare for interviews, prepare for the job searching, looking to industries. And this is where I want to go back to what you were mentioning. I said, I saw that you're going to say something about networking, because that's another thing that it's definitely something I strongly recommend people to start working on when you are still at your job. Networking, keep connecting, keep talking to people, maybe sharing that you're not really satisfied. So you never know who you are talking with, and you never know if you are actually crafting an open door or an opportunity right there. So let's dive in a little bit into that, Alicia. How was your story in terms of networking for all of these career transitions?
Yeah, and I'll be very blunt about it because I think this can help people that maybe face a similar situation. I'm going to tell you about like my first experience with networking and then how it works for me right now. So, networking for me was a very new concept because I started my career around like 15 years ago, right? And networking is huge here in the US, but at least 15 years ago in Brazil, it wasn't that clear to me. All that I knew is that I was a field engineering, field engineer in Votorantim Cimentos, and that I just knew that this wasn't what I wanted. And then I was very lucky that I knew a lady. She was an executive at Kraft. She was a family friend, and I kind of opened up with her, barely knowing that this was already networking. I said, Anna, would love to know more about your job, your role, because I just know that I'm not very happy. I know the things that I like. So I like, like studying hard, working hard, interacting with people. And this is not what I'm doing. This lady, she was very familiar with networking because her career had been between the US and also Brazil. So she said, okay, Alicia, that's great. It's okay that you don't know. You know what you don't like, which is being in the field as an engineer. So let me connect you to some people that I know at Kraft in different areas. So through marketing, operations, research and development. I think she elected 4 areas. And then I went to Kraft to talk to these people just to understand a little bit more about what they were doing and also share about my background. Barely I knew that I was starting to network because I was asking questions, learning about what these people did. And then that's how I met my skip level manager at that time, my future skip level manager. They didn't have a position at the time, but we got to know each other. He learned about me. I learned about the job, and I saw that's what I wanted. And then I think 3 months later, he reached out that they had a position that would be very good for my background, and then that's when I shifted, right? So yeah, so that was the first time that I did networking. And the second thing that I wanted to share that, maybe has happened a little bit more recently is in our jobs. And the easiest thing to do is just to stay in our lane, not dedicate time to get to know other people, other areas. It's much easier, right? And, but I think it's always important to carve out some time and, elect the people that you want to get closer to and get to know better. And then, this first conversation, I think it's sometimes a little bit hard. It can be very fluid and, it can go amazing or it can go okay. Like maybe you try something and you don't have so much to do with the person. But I think it's important to do because then with these people that you do, you're going to elect who has, something to do with you, that you get along well and, it's a good exchange. And then you build your connections, right? So I just wanted to emphasize that sometimes the easiest thing to do is not to do it, right? but it's not the best for you, right? So it's always better to say, hey, okay, I'm going to set a goal that every 2 weeks I'm going to connect to someone new. And that's it. That's very important. So just wanted to
Yeah.
reinforce the importance. Yeah.
I love that, Alicia. Basically, when you are networking, you are building visibility, you are allowing people to get to know you better and let them know what your goals are, what your intentions are in terms of career. So it's really nice to know that, because that's not only networking outside, like really like going after people from outside. Of course, that if that's your goal, to leave your company, definitely go after the industry and the companies you admire and start connecting with them. But I also think that for a lot of times there are opportunities you can connect with people from your own company, and this is how you get to build your visibility and then grow in your own company. And Alicia, you've been working different departments and different roles, like from finances and supply chain and chemical engineer. When do you know when it's time for you to start developing those skills so you can transition to another role?
I think it's when you're not learning very much anymore. So you're in your comfort zone. I think it's always important to be growing, right? So you want to work in X company or, in that other area of the same company. So I think it's another kind of reason where you should like look for another opportunity. And then I think you asked about how to do that. And I think that there is a lot of
Yeah, what was
planning.
your strategy? How did you get these opportunities?
Exactly. Yes. So, I think that if I would summarize in 2 words, it would be first, making sure that you have an excellent performance in whatever you're doing. Doesn't matter if you like it, if you don't like it, doesn't matter. It's very important that you build a very strong brand and that people know you for the quality of your work. Like that's basic. Otherwise you cannot move anywhere, right? If you're not doing well at your job. So make sure you're doing the basics very well done. And then be brave and also open yourself to networking, right? Networking has been extremely important, extremely difficult at times, right? But extremely important, at least for me, in the two big shifts that I made in my career, right? So the first one from Brazil to Mexico, and then the second one from Mexico to the US, right? It was very, very important. So those two things, right? Hard work and also networking. So then I also did kind of like a similar strategy in the US and did a lot of like connecting and learning about what people did in the US market. And this time I think I prepared even more because it was a much more competitive environment. So I did a lot of like studying about the areas, mock interviews, like connected with a lot of people. And that landed me like the second transition, which was my final, at least like country wise, was kind of like my final transition for now, which is when I shifted to the US.
Which is the one that you are working out nowadays, nothing less than Google in San Francisco.
Yes.
Okay, yeah. So, so a little bit about the networking. Do you find there is a time of the year that it's just better to connect with people and keep building the networking?
Yes, I think that usually from my experience, Q4, right, which is the final quarter of the year, is usually very, very hectic for everyone, especially in the area that I'm at, which is like finance or sales. So sales, they are trying to beat the targets. So it's the last
Yeah.
quarter, or finance, we're closing the books and ending the year. So I think Q4 people are usually a little bit more busy. It's more difficult to carve out time to connect. And also on a budget perspective, I think that at least from my experience, most of the hires, they happened in Q1 onwards. So like January, February, March, which is when, there is like the opening of the new year budget to hire people to backfill positions. I think it's always important to do networking, right? To open up these opportunities. I think Q1 is the best timing because people are just starting the year fresh. They just ended up the most busy part of the year. They had some vacations. mostly. Then there's two things that play in your favor, right? So like the budget. So there's budget for hiring usually. And also people have the bandwidth and the time to talk to you. So if I could choose a time, I think I would use Q4 to prepare, to research about the company, build a strategy plan. I always did something like I built a spreadsheet with the areas that I'm interested at, the people that I'm going to reach out to, and also I can track.
Wow.
Yeah, that's super helpful. So like, did I talk to this person? Did I reach out, saying a thank you note, or, like sharing an interesting article that I saw, just to keep the connection alive. So I would build the strategy in Q4 and start acting in Q1. Yeah, I think that's a great question.
Wow. And also add some notes of, what you talked about with this person, because you never know when you're going to talk again, and then just remember, what's the topic that I talked to them. So that's great. In terms of the transition, just to highlight what you said, it's being high performer, be excellent at whatever work you're doing, and then craft these opportunities through networking, and yes, and make plans the same way you're making plans and talking to people and connecting, and maybe being so organized like Alicia, put in a spreadsheet who are the people you're connecting, but also keep connecting with people and talking with them, and crafting these opportunities, not waiting for them to knock your door. Another thing that I like when we talk about career transition is, when you are preparing yourself for the change, it's important to start making a plan. And network will be part of this plan, right? So we never know who is around the corner, who is hiring, or what's happening, some changes across the companies, across the countries, and global. So this is when you get the opportunity. And Alice, speaking about the skills, what do you believe that are the transferable skills that can be helpful when you are in a transition between roles?
I think the first one is the desire to do whatever you do with excellence. So it doesn't matter if it's a simple spreadsheet or if it's a simple project or a huge project, right? Always doing your best, always doing it with the highest level of excellence that you can, because that's going to motivate you. That's going to build your brand and also make you feel good with yourself. So excellence. I think another one is like a desire to be always learning, always improving, like talking to people, getting feedback, and also like going beyond what you know how to do. So like always this eagerness to learn. And also, like, at least for me, it has been very important to connect to my principles. And when I wasn't enjoying some jobs, for example, thinking, what is important for me? Like, what is important to me for me to feel happy? So for me, those two things are very important. So like the learning part and then the doing your thing with excellence, they are like kind of pillars for me. So I would really advise anyone to see, okay, remember one time in your life when you were very happy. What are the things that, made a difference for you? What is important to you? Is it having, like having fun with whatever you're working with? Is it bringing excellence to everything you do? And then, because I think if you apply something that is a pillar to you in your job, it goes much more naturally, and then you can perform well. So I think those two. Rachel, another thing is being a good citizen. I think you never know who you're going to encounter in your next role. In the end, you end up meeting people, right? Or, people that know people. So it doesn't matter how people are with you. I think it's always important to assume good intent, to do your job well done, to treat people with respect, to be kind. I think that it's never overrated. I think it's very, very important. So, because that's important to you. Want to work with people that are pleasurable, that are helpful, and that are professional. So being a good citizen, and also going out of your comfort zone, right? Which has a little bit to do with the learning part that I mentioned. So not settling for the things that you do, but, like doing a 20% project, going to, um, if you know that there is a need, so you are in finance, and this happened to me, right? I was in finance and there was a project that sales needed some help. So volunteering to do something different, because then you open doors, you get to know people through a project, and then you never know, your next opportunity can land in this area that you went to help. Right? There's so many ways to learn. So when I transition, I can mention two ways that I applied learning and that were very fun as well. So one, I had recently worked in supply chain, almost my whole career. And I had landed a job in finance, which was an area that, yes, I studied a little bit of finance during my master's, but I had never worked in finance, right? So in this case, I used technical training during my lunchtime. So for example, during the lunchtime, I enrolled in an EDX course that was corporate finance. And I also really like to study, right? So during my lunchtime, I would, like go to a little room, study, and that would create motivation for me and give me more confidence because I was a finance manager, right? So that helped in many ways for the technical knowledge, confidence, to do my job better. So this was how I learned more, right? And then another one was when I was already in finance at Google. And Google has this amazing thing that I think we can carve out this in other companies as well, which is a side project that you can do, right? So I knew that there was a person going on mat leave and I was sales finance. So it was very important that I knew the sales organization well to be a great business partner to them. So I heard that someone was going on mat leave and that I could, do my job and also cover for her. And this was also like a lot of learning because I did my job. I covered for her in some of her responsibilities. And then I was able to learn the sales part of things, right? Which, Rachel, it was amazing because although those were 7 months of like extremely hard work because I needed to do my day job and also cover for her, this is what landed my promotion. I think it was like 1 year later. I got to do an excellent job there, work very hard, learn. And then later on, I think 1 year later, that sales team that knew my job, um, is who hired me. And then I was able to get my promotion through that. So I always say, I think learning is like so, so important. And I think we all know that, right?
Wow, congratulations. See, yeah, no, I
Yeah.
know, Alicia, you were super driven and it's amazing to hear that you're taking the advantage of learning, especially nowadays we have so much technology and resources. So I love hearing that you're studying in your lunchtime, and I know, and life gets so busy and we need to organize our time, like time management, to organize our time to really focus on this is when I want to grow and this is where I want to go. So you can use that time wisely to learn more and really make the plans for your next steps. And then you got the promotion. But I also see that you got the promotion because you, first of all, you volunteered to another project. And that's probably how you got the exposure, right? That's amazing. So that's where we are learning from you. What are the transferable skills, the major skills that we need to keep in mind to keep growing our career? But then, how do you demonstrate your skills when you're going through hiring processes? Again, just like a highlight of your story because you've been transitioned from different roles and industries. So, what is your strategy when you are talking with hiring managers to demonstrate all of these amazing skills and your personality and all of your dedication when you are in the hiring process?
So, whenever I decide, okay, I am in this position, I want to be a category business manager, which was the one that I recently transitioned to. So first I take a very strong decision. Okay, this is really what I want. Yes, it is. Okay, great. So I'm going to employ all my efforts to get there, right? So I think my process is basically like this. I see the job requirement, right? The job description. And from that description, that is so important because you need to understand the description very, very well. So also when you prepare to the interview, you know what they're looking for, you know which examples from your current job you can use that they're going to say, okay, she knows what she's talking about. We could employ this thing that she does in this job, right? So knowing very well the job description. sometimes the job description, everyone's so busy, right? They do the job description and maybe it doesn't go that far. It's not as deep. So you can understand a little bit about the job, but nothing like talking to the people in the role that you're applying for, right? So I never save time networking to the people that work in that area. So I try to see through colleagues that those people that work in that area. In my case was CBM, category business management. And then I talk to all the layers of the people that work in this area, from the analysts to the senior managers, to really understand, okay, what are the important things that they do? What is priority? What are the challenges? And then also to understand the day to day, because I think that helps in two ways. Go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, where did you find these people?
Oh, yeah. So I think great question. So I think if it's in the same company, right, I try to see if I have a connection that knows that area, or if I don't have a connection, it's also fine. I just go and introduce myself. So I see it through the company system. And then I say, okay, so Rachel works in CBM and I want to work in CBM. So I reach out to you, say, hey, I'm Alice. I work in finance. I want to do CBM. Can we
Well
carve out some
done.
time? Right? And then usually through one person, you can always ask, okay, great. So I would love to talk to more people. Who is a good contact in CBM that you can introduce me to, right? So you just find the people that work in the area that you work. It's always better if you have a common connection, but it's also totally okay if you don't. When I transitioned from Mexico to the US, I really didn't know anyone. It was honestly cold calling, right? And then I invest a lot of time talking to these people and understanding what they do. So when I do my mock interview, when I prepare myself to the interviews, I apply those things. And also I show the hiring manager that I know what they do. I mentioned that, oh yeah, that's so true. I talked to Rachel in your team. She told me about this project. I think that I could help in this, and that. So I think it's an amazing strategy because you gather information by talking to this, and also you show your interest because these people are going to mention, hey, hiring manager, I talked to Alice. She's super interested. She looks like a good fit. So I think it helps a lot.
Amazing. I love what you're saying about the understanding better the role. I totally agree that sometimes the hire managers don't really have the clarity of what they're looking for in the role. So that's very good that you take the time to connect with the key people, these people that might help you understand better what that role is about, and also understand and learn more about the company and about that industry. So you get much more prepared. So well done, Alicia. Yeah, that's why you are at where you are today. Alicia, when we talk about the international career, and that comes with a lot of challenges. It's not easy, but it's worth it. What would you like to share today with our listeners that are considering to take this bold step to start building an international career and maybe move the country, or maybe start planning what's next for them in their career, moving from companies or countries or roles? What advice would you give to someone that is planning or trying to come up with a plan for this?
Perfect. Yeah. So I think a very, very down to earth and sincere advice, right? I think first thing, go for it, right? Go for it. Even if it's a bad experience or a very difficult experience, you're always going to learn so much. You're going to get to know people, get to know another culture, another way of working that has pros and cons. Of course, it's always going to have pros and cons. The very down to earth part that I mentioned is it is going to be hard. That, most probably, at least in my experience, it has always been hard. The first 6 months to at least 1 year, it has been tough. It has been the same when I transitioned from Brazil to Mexico, when I transitioned from Mexico to the US. But those were the best things that happened to me. So like the hardest opportunities, the ones when, sometimes the feedback wasn't what I expected, or I was struggling with the language. I needed to challenge people in a language that I didn't know very well. And I was like just doing my best. Those were the ones where I learned the most, where, So yes, it is going to be difficult, but it's not going to be difficult forever, right? So you just know that like from 6 months to 1 year, it's going to be very tough. But then, like the difficulties, they come and go and in different ways, right? Maybe it's your team and then it's the language. But like there's things that get better and that there are things that, the difficulties just change. But I would say definitely go for it, because even if you struggle a lot and it's extremely hard, you're going to learn and you're going to just become a better professional, right? And you can always go back, if it's not what you like, right? But yeah, I definitely encourage.
Definitely go forward, because as you know, everything turns to experience, and you go through the learning process. That's all that's happening. You're just gaining more experience and becoming stronger. And it is inspiring, because we know that it's not easy. So we always like to be realistic as well, right? But it is rewarding. It is worth, because there's nothing better than going after your dream. So if that's your dream, definitely go after. Alice, thank you so much for being here, sharing your experience and everything that you've been through, all of your transition, and how you've been an amazing international career. Thank you so much. You know that I'm here always cheering for you. Thank you so much for being in the Driven Career podcast today.
Thank you so much, Rachel. And I just wanted to share also with the people that listen to your podcast that sometimes we try to do it by ourselves. And I think it's so important, like professionals like you that have the experience, because you went through this as well. I know that you work for many very large companies, not only in Brazil, but also in Canada, have experience in the US. And I think, if you can invest in a professional that can help you, get better prepared, do a very high quality mock interview and help you through this process. I think it's super important, especially someone that went through this like you, right? So I'm so appreciative that you're doing all this work, and that I think your listeners can take on your expertise and use this to achieve their goals much quicker, right? Like in my case, I think maybe I took much more time, and having this support from you, I think it's so important that people should definitely leverage to achieve their goals much quicker and in a more robust way. So thank you so much for the work you do. I love your podcast, and I'm sure that this is helping many, many people. So it was a pleasure to be with you today.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Alice. Thank you so much. Yeah, this is encouraging words for me as well. I'm really enjoying the work I'm doing now, because I just learned that our lives are our own laboratory, right? So we go through the challenges and we learn. And I think there is nothing more rewarding than help others if they can have some shortcuts, because you are connecting with someone that already have been through that. So why not? So that's why I'm so happy to do the work I'm doing today, to help driven professionals to build up their career and go through their transitions, go after the type of work that they want to do, especially if that means an international career. Well, thanks for sticking around. Thanks for watching our episode. I just hope that this episode inspired you and encouraged you to take the next steps. If you are aiming to start a new career, if you don't really know what to do, what the next steps are, feel free to reach out to me. I have my contacts here in the description. Alice also will have her link here. Connect with her on LinkedIn and see her updates. That's always inspiring as well. So make sure you leave your comments here, so we will know more about what you liked about this episode and what you would like to know more about this type of content as well. We will come back next week with another amazing episode from The Driven Career. And until then, stay driven.
Stay driven.